Today we're going to talk a little bit about how the housing market fared in 2020 and what that's going to mean for housing in 2021. Hi, I'm SandiWarner with Warner Realty Group, and today we're going to take a look back at some of the dire projections about the housing market and the economy in general back at the beginning of the pandemic, around that second quarter between, say, March and June or even July. We're going to link in this video or somewhere on this. You're going to be able to see I did a video in July that was a direct response to a Suze Orman article, and Suze Orman said something that I think a lot of people really believed at the time, in that she made a dire prediction that the pandemic was going to lead to this increase in foreclosures and it was going to drop property values. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at how 2020 differed in that whole forbearance foreclosure market, or environment, I should say. So the first slide we're going to put up, it's called Forbearance Concerns versus Reality. And in the beginning of all the lockdowns across the country, most experts were predicting that we would see at least 30% of all mortgages in the United States go into forbearance. A neat thing about forbearance that I think a lot of people don't understand is that in 2008, we didn't have forbearance. The federal government did not have a way for people to sort of modify or forbear their loans. That was one of the real big reasons that we saw so many foreclosures. What actually happened in 2020 was everyone was allowed I think the Consumer Finance Protection Board was the one who made the ruling that everybody could have 180 days forbearance. And if you had a mortgage, you probably noticed if you logged into your site, whether you were Citibank or JP Morgan or whoever, there's a little button there and you could click that and that would automatically give you a forbearance for 180 days. So back to the slide, it was projected that 30% of mortgages would go in forbearance. What actually happened was 8.6% of all mortgages in the United States took advantage of the forbearance. And right now, and this is actually mid-November of 2020, which was the last data that came out, only 5.5% of people with mortgages are currently in forbearance. So that's pretty good. That means that more people felt confident, had economic security, and probably a small aspect of them didn't know that they could do forbearance. The next slide we're going to look at is titled, "Of the 6,484,000 families granted forbearance, this is what has happened," again, dating back to the middle of November. 2,254,000 of the people who originally asked for forbearance have extended their forbearance. The big chunk, and I think this is a really telling number, and I hope that this gives you some comfort the way it gives me comfort if you have any nerves over the continuing economy. 48%. That's over 3 million people of the 6,400,000 who originally asked for forbearance. 2,543,000 removed while performing, meaning they didn't use the forbearance. They didn't need it. They just kept paying their mortgage. And what's even more interesting is 625,000 of those people paid off their mortgage while they were under forbearance. So they clicked the button and then said, "Oh, we don't need it," And you could see that mentality, like, "Oh gosh, I'm going to ask for forbearance just in case I lose my job," because in May and June and July, none of us knew what was going on. This doesn't mean that there aren't people out there struggling and that there are a lot of people in trouble. There are. But I think it's important to remember that headlines do more to terrify than to clarify. Of the original 6,400,000, 434,000 are expired or delinquent, but they're in loss mitigation, right? So they're taking other steps. And another 116,000 have expired, they're delinquent, and we need to watch those. What's happening with those? Because the reality is, you can renew. You had a right under the first forbearance to renew for another 180 days. So that's a total of 360 days. So you could have a year's worth of forbearance. So great news. For all the people who are still saying, don't buy now, we're going to see a wave of foreclosures and homes are going to be cheap. Don't forget that in 2008, we didn't have forbearance. You couldn't do loss mitigation. You couldn't do loan modifications. The federal government does not want to see 2008 again, and thus we had the forbearance. And the other side of that is we saw, on average in the United States, a 7.4% increase in equity over the last year. Remember, in 2008, we saw a 19% overall in the country, a 19% decline in home equity, plus we were in a strong buyer's market. We had way more inventory than we had buyers. Right now, we are still in a seller's market. There are still more buyers than there are properties. So I hope that gives you some peace. That's going to put us at a really good start for 2021. If you're thinking about listing a home or if you're ready to buy, prices are expected to continue to go up, but we are still seeing wonderful affordability. Last I checked, the national mortgage rate was about 2.75%, which is crazy. Meaning you can buy so much more house for the same payment. So yes, it is more expensive, but it's much more affordable to buy that more expensive house. And sellers, people are out there to buy your home. They are competing to buy your home. If you've given any thought to listing, now is a great time. Give us a call. If you have any questions, would love to talk to you. I'm at 401-662-7204, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.